Chapter 9. At the healer's urging, the other dwarves carefully lifted the burned stone fist and carried him into the drake cutter's house. Smoke still filled the street. Mud put his arm over his mouth and coughed. His lungs felt like they were on fire. He staggered away. Each step brought stinging pain from his burned feet. "What are you doing?" Hera cried. "We can't leave until the cleric has a look at you. You're in no condition to move." Mud waved a dismissive hand. "The healer has his own people to worry about. A lot of dwarves are in worse shape than I am," he laughed. "I'll be fine." "Mud, please." She caught his arm and called to the dwarves who were throwing buckets of water on the burning buildings. Mud's stomach twisted and he tried to quiet Hera. He just wanted to get away from the smoke and flames and be alone for a while. "Dear boy, where are you going?" The mother of the dwarf child he saved rushed over to him. Her brown dress was covered with soot. She wrapped a thick arm around Mud's waist and hauled him back toward the drake cutter house. Mud tried to protest, but for some reason his eyesight went fuzzy and his legs wouldn't work anymore. Mud flinched as the dwarf cleric rubbed salve on the bottoms of his burned feet. He sat on a chair in the drake cutter kitchen, where they'd taken him after he collapsed in the street. "Hold still," Hera admonished. "Easy for you to say," Mud muttered through gritted teeth. The burning building had melted his boots to his feet, and chunks of skin had peeled off when the healer removed them. While Tehil tended Mud's burns, Green Thumb raced around the kitchen, shoving supplies into a pack and cursing a red dragon under his breath. Mud's stomach grumbled. He hoped the dwarf didn't clear out the whole larder before setting out after the dragon. A deep frown creased Hera's face. Mud gave her a jaunty smile. "I'm all right, Hera." He immediately belied his confidence when he yelped in pain. He tried to pull his feet away from him as Tehil wrapped a bandage around the burns. "Hold still," the healer said. Hera rolled her eyes. "I'm sure you'll be fine, Mud, but what do we do now? If Stonefist can't tell us where to find that door, how will we get the pendant and save Shannara?" Green Thumb stopped with a half of a smoked ham in his hand, ready to shove it into his bag. "What door? Isn't Shannara the seer from Potter's Mill? I've heard of her." Hera put her hands on her hips. "Yes, Shannara is our seer, and she's been kidnapped by the dragon." "The same dragon who had just burned Green Hollow to the ground? Why would the dragon take Shannara?" Green Thumb put the ham on the table and raked his fingers through his already mussed beard. "Of course, I suppose I could ask the same one why she just burned Green Hollow." "We don't know," Hera said, "but she left a note telling us to—" Mud jumped to his feet, ignoring the sting of the pain from the burns, and pressed his hand over Hera's mouth. The cleric exploded in exasperation. He chanted a quick prayer to Mishkael, asking for a blessing of healing for Mud's feet. Then, muttering under his breath, he put away his salves and stalked out of the room. "What's the matter with you?" Hera asked, prying Mud's hand from her mouth. "Green Thumb's got his own problems to worry about." Mud took Hera's arm and dragged her into the living room, where two bare hooks over the fireplace showed the place an axe once hung. "Hera, you can't go around telling people about our quest. Not everyone here is your friend. We had to wait for Stonefist to wake up. He's the one who would know." "The cleric said my father isn't likely to wake up any time soon," Green Thumb said, stepping into the room. Hera said something about a stone door. "I'm not my father, but perhaps I might help." Mud sighed. He had to admit the dwarf was right. "We're looking for a stone door with runes carved into it. A friend from home said there were lots of caves in this area, and that Master Drakecutter might know them well enough to point us in the right direction." Green Thumb's shoulders slumped. "You're right. I can't help. My father doesn't let me wander the caves here or anywhere else. But if you're looking for information, the place to go is the great library of Palanthus." The library, of course, Mud thought, where Astinus, the chronologer, kept the history of the world. "Great idea," Hera said. "If any place has information about the dragon pendant, the library will." Dragon pendant? What's that?" Green Thumb took a step toward them. "Nothing," Mud said. "But it's so strange," Hera said. "First the dragon comes to Potter's Mill and kidnaps Shannara. Then she attacks Green Hollow and takes Stonefist's magic axe. They must be connected somehow." "Perhaps they are." Green Thumb sat down his overstuffed pack. "Tell me what you know." "No," said Mud. "It's none of your affair." Hera slapped his arm. Before Mud could stop her, she started telling Green Thumb all about the silver dragon, the pendant, and the tests that were supposed to guard the door to it. While she talked, Mud retreated to the kitchen, grabbed the ham off the table, and helped himself to a bite. He leaned back in a chair, glad to get off his stinging feet. Smoke from the burning village hung heavy in the air, even inside the snug stone home. But the succulent meat filled his stomach and settled his nerves. "You should come with us to Belanthus." Hera's high-pitched voice jerked him upright in his chair. "Now, Hera," Mud called through the doorway to the living room, "Green Thumb is going after the red dragon to get his father's axe. He doesn't have time to come with us to Belanthus." Green Thumb charged into the kitchen and grabbed the front of Mud's shirt, growling, "The name's Drake Cutter. Call me Green Thumb again and I'll chop you to kindling." "But that's what your father called you," Mud spluttered. "My father named me Green Thumb because he wants me to be a farmer. But I'm not a farmer. I'm a warrior." Green Thumb shook Mud, then released him and stepped back. "The name is Drake Cutter, and don't you forget it. My father is dying, and the only way I can save him is to get back his axe." Green Thumb, no Drake Cutter, calmed his breathing a little and continued. "Hera's right. I could search for months up in those mountains for the dragon's lair, but I don't have months. If we work together, we can find the dragon pendant quickly and summon the silver dragon. We can ask her to get both Shannara and the axe." Mud swallowed a bite of meat and then put it down. "We can ask her?" He didn't like how quickly the younger Drake Cutter had included himself in their quest. "Yes, we can ask her," Drake Cutter said. Mud stood, wincing just a little. His feet were still tender, but they no longer hurt. "For all you know, it will take us longer to find the pendant than to search for the dragon's lair. Why don't we split up? You go search for the dragon, and Hera and I will go to Belanthus." Drake Cutter huffed, picked up his pack, and walked to the door. "Thanks for saving my father," he said in a low voice. "That took a lot of courage." "Or sheer idiocy," Hera said. "Something like what he's doing now." Hera wrapped her arms around Drake Cutter in a tight hug. "Be careful," she whispered. She released him, and her eyes sparkled with a clever gleam. "You might as well start your search for the dragon in the mountains between here and Belanthus." Drake Cutter gave Hera a grim smile and stomped out of the house. Mud sank back into the chair, feeling wretched for some odd reason. Karak climbed off Red Claw's back and flung the axe into the dragon's hoard. It clattered against the other treasure and settled at the base of a thick wooden chest. Before he could take a step, he doubled over and emptied the contents of his stomach on the floor. Fortunately, he'd eaten so little in the last week it didn't make much mess. Red Claw laughed at him and blew a wisp of flame at his back that ignited his shirt. "You always were too soft-hearted." As Karak beat the fire out, he glared at Red Claw. "You didn't have to kill Stonefist." During their long flight back to the lair, Red Claw had bragged about smashing the old dwarf into the fire and letting him burn. Red Claw snorted. "Yes, I did have to dispose of Stonefist. Otherwise he would come for his axe himself. But with him out of the way, Green Thumb is sure to join Mud in his quest for the pendant. But Stonefist was nice to me when I stopped in Green Hollow while searching for the pendant," Karak whispered to himself. Red Claw's clean ears picked up his whisper. "Stonefist was nice to you," she mimicked. "Stonefist was a fool to tell a stranger about his axe, an axe you can use to kill the silver dragon after you summon her." Red Claw turned her scaly back on him and slithered to the far reaches of her lair. "The only foolish thing was letting you find out about it," Karak muttered as soon as she was out of hearing range. He shuddered. After Red Claw had captured him, she shifted through his mind with merciless cruelty, flaying away all pretense to discover his true identity. She tore the knowledge of the dragon pendant and the magic axe from his memories as well, though he battled with all his will to stop her. Then she used his own thoughts to come up with a plan she'd forced on him. Karak moaned. His life was cursed to himself and everyone he came in contact with. He was a vile creature born of darkness. As long as he lived, more people would die. Mud and Green Thumb for sure, and perhaps many others. "I wish I'd never been born," he cried. "Karak?" Shannara's soft voice froze him. She stood in the doorway of her alcove, her face calm and her gaze soothing despite the heavy manacle that still clung to her wrist. "Your life is not hopeless." "I see no hope." Karak's ragged voice echoed around the chamber. "You are not a seer," Shannara said. "You can't see the future. You believe you are doomed based on what you think is going to happen, but there is no truth in your assumption. The future may play out in different ways. As long as you live and breathe, there is hope for a better tomorrow. Karak stared into her wrinkled old face. A flicker of hope lit in him. You have seen my future? Was there more to your vision that you didn't tell me? I have seen what you are, and I know what you can be, Shannara said. Embrace loyalty and friendship. They are stronger than a dragon's magic. Karak grimaced and walked to the mouth of the cave. He stared down across the rugged mountains toward Green Hollow. Loyalty and friendship could just as easily turn into betrayal. End of chapter 9.